quiet.
I'd like to call the July meeting, the Jackson City School Boards of Education to order. Ms. You'll have a roll call, please.
Mr. McDonald?
Present.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Ms. Harless?
Here.
Dr. Morris?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Need a motion and a second to approve the agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes. Need a motion and a second to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Dr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes. And move on to presentation.
Okay, last week I had, or last board meeting, I guess, a few weeks ago, I had asked Dr. Howler to participate in our meeting regarding COVID status for the county and opinions on masks and so forth. I actually interrupted her vacation, and we tried to, with the technology, to be able to get her connected, and we I'm sure you were probably giving me some choice words, Paul, but so she graciously agreed to come this week and talk to us about that. So, Dr. Howler.
Sure. So yeah, actually it was a working vacation for me. Thanks to my husband and my family who understand all of my responsibilities and so forth. So thank you for inviting me here and for being a part of the presentation and discussion with regards to COVID. You know, COVID has impacted all of our lives tremendously, and we all have stories to tell. So many of us have been impacted by severe illness, death. I had an aunt, Paul's had cousins who have passed away. It is probably no secret by now that a year ago this time, Paul and I had COVID. We were successful in the fact that we had good outcomes from it, and not everybody has had good outcomes. So, you know, I'm not quite sure what position that you're looking for from my standpoint, but, you know, one of the things that I did want to reiterate to you all is that, you know, I commend all of you all and the whole school system, all the teachers, for staying in school, for all of the practices that you put into place last year. I mean, the success of that has been phenomenal. And so I think you have to rely on those successes to then continue to move forward and build on those. And so why change the plan? I mean, you have to ask yourself, why change the plan? If you've been successful with mitigating so much COVID in your school system and with regards to the students being out and so forth, and granted, I know, everybody says, well, quarantine and so forth, and the CDC recommendations have changed. However, you know, we really do need to get back to the basics, and I've said this all along. You know, I'm in a profession that, guess what? I wear a mask a lot. Well, it became part of my everyday, wearage of protective gear with COVID, along with a shield and so forth. And some of you all even saw, you know, I even wore the Tyvek suits. I mean, I was very protected on the front lines, and I know that's going a little bit outside of what we're looking at from the school standpoint. But you all need to get back to the basics, and we as a society need to think about hand washing, social distancing. If you're sick, stay home. I mean, how many times do we say that all along, and yet we all have been guilty of going to work ill? I mean, think about it. You know, you have the sniffles, you think it's nothing. That is exactly what happened with me. I thought I had more like allergy symptoms because Paul was positive. I got tested and bam, I was positive. So, and I can tell you that right now with the variants, that's what we're seeing with regards to some of the symptomatology, is that the variants are a wide range of symptoms. But before I talk about the variants, let me go back to the basics. So you all were successful with social distancing, with wearing masks, with the screens, the plexiglass, everything, with your ventilation system. I think a lot of the schools in the area changed their ventilation system a little bit, made sure that things were a little bit more aerated and so forth, so that you're not in a concentrated situation. And so I think it's important to look at that. And I'm a proponent of wearing masks. I literally came out of a meeting just within the last hour with the state. And I am very verbal and upfront and say that, of course, in healthcare it's a little bit different, but I'm still a proponent of masks and shields. I wear that every day. I set the example. You know, you're looking at students, you're looking at, 5 starting in kindergarten, 5 through 18 years of age. Well, we know right now that the vaccines hit 12 and older. You know, the studies are out there, they're trying to develop those vaccines for the younger age group, but we have to do something to keep them protected. The best way to protect them is with masks, is with as best a mitigation as possible. Hand washing, social distancing, if you're ill, stay home. Of course, all the typical things of health and wellness, rest, good nutrition, and those kinds of things. And I think that last week, I did listen, went back and listened. Phil encouraged me to go back and listen to the meeting and so forth, because I had that connectivity issue. And you know, there were points made by everyone who spoke, and in a positive light. I will address the concerns that Michelle had with regards to the masks. And one of the things she cited was the study. I have to admit that I didn't look at the University of Florida study, but I will say this. You know, if you're wearing mask, change your mask every day. I mean, change your mask every day. That is really kind of one of those scenarios. I hate to say it's a no-brainer, but it's a no-brainer. Just like if you're wearing cloth mask, I know that Kevin talked about cloth mask, and depending on what type of cloth it is and how much protection it affords, so, which is not that great of a protection, but it is protection. So you don't just wear, I mean, we all go home and we change our clothes every night and we wash our clothes. I mean, you don't not wash your mask. I mean, if you're wearing cloth mask, wash it every day. I mean, that's just common sense. I mean, Dr. Morris, you know, in your practice had to change and adapt to COVID and all the regulations and so forth. So, you know, think about those scenarios, and you just have to stay protected. So, you know, for every study that's out there, there's an opposing study. So you have to keep that into perspective whenever you're looking at all these different studies and what brings to light. Education is really key. That's one thing that I talked about in a state meeting this evening, was really making sure that we get out there and we continue to educate individuals on vaccines and whether or not you're vaccinated and how much protection that affords versus being unvaccinated. So, you know, let me just talk about the vaccines. You know, I'm a huge proponent. You probably saw on my Facebook feed, I don't post too awfully much, but I got the vaccine as early as I could, you know, and that was very important. All of our family, I mean, my mother, who's 82, she's been vaccinated. You know, she may even be listening. I told her to listen. I may reference her, you know, remotely, but you know, it's vitally important. And what you have to think about with the vaccine is this, is that the coronavirus was around long before COVID-19. COVID-19 is one of the coronaviruses, but we had other coronaviruses before now. I mean, Doc Owens talked about the one in 2003, I believe it is, and so forth. And so when you think about the evolution of, just like with the flu shots, how that the flu vaccine evolves. I mean, this is not something that they just picked some different recipes and put it together and said, here we have a vaccine for emergency authorization use. I mean, this is very, very safe. Now, are there side effects? Sure, just like the flu vaccine, just like with anything else, just like with medication. I'm allergic to penicillin and sulfa. I know that if I take those medications, I'm going to have a side effect from it. I mean, so you have to think about that. But everybody needs to talk to their healthcare provider to be comfortable in what those recommendations are. But I'm a huge proponent of the vaccine. I know that it's safe. Everybody's questioned, are we going to have a booster because of the variants? Well, guess what? It's coming. We believe that because of all the different mutations that are going on with with COVID, with this virus, that we believe that there is going to be a need for the booster shot. Well, guess what? What do we do every year? We get a flu vaccine every year. So, and we know that this past year, our flu numbers have been down. Well, why have they been down? Because we've done mitigation. We've worn masks. We've had good hand washing. Of course, I know that, there was the stay-at-home order and things like that and so forth, but that was not really at a significant time when the flu was very paramount or would be paramount normally in everyday society. However, we didn't have that much flu. So all of the things that we have put into place and protocols have been very effective. So, I'm not quite sure if there's, anything particular that I, could answer about COVID, about the vaccine, other than to say that I would just encourage you all to encourage everyone to get it. With regards to the reporting and the self-reporting, I can tell you that all of the 3 pharmaceutical companies that are manufacturing, and even AstraZeneca, who wasn't successful with their vaccine, they want to know any potential side effect. They want to know that because they want to make sure that their vaccines are safe and effective. And so, even with any kind of different trial and study, I've had various physician friends who were part of the study. I was not part of those Moderna studies or the Pfizer study because I didn't live in a location where I could participate. Would I have? Probably so, because I know the impact. And I could show you all ET tubes of patients that had COVID that did not have a good outcome and so forth. And I won't gross you out on that. But I will tell you that, like I said, COVID has just impacted us all. So I would encourage you all to keep doing the things that you're doing, that you've done this past school year. And certainly, I would encourage everyone to get, unless there is a true complication that your healthcare provider or the provider that you seek the most confidence in and that does your own medical care, if they direct you down a different path, then I would say, that'll be between you, your decision, and your healthcare provider. So I do have something that I haven't had a chance to review that is actually hot off the press about vaccinations and so forth. And I will just tell you that just from what I scanned, it is, let me just reference a couple of things with regards to the advantages of taking the vaccine. Not only does it afford individual protection, but it protects the patients or the other individuals that you're going to be around who can't be vaccinated. What about those immunocompromised individuals who you may come in contact every day who possibly can't get the vaccine? So that's 2 reasons to get vaccinated. Another one is, of course, to reduce the risk of asymptomatic transmission. We know that the numbers of individuals who are contracting COVID right now, and especially the Delta variant, are those individuals who are having negative outcomes who are unvaccinated. I can tell you that I just got a report of 5 new individuals unvaccinated who are now COVID positive. So, and I deal with reports from all over the state. But every time that there's new cases, we get that. So, to know that today I've already gotten a report that there are 5 individuals who are unvaccinated somewhere in the state, that's impacting. And I know you're thinking, well, gosh, 5 individuals, we have 88 counties, correct? 88 counties in our state. Well, that's nothing. That's not even 1 per county. But that one individual who potentially was asymptomatic, who tested positive today, could have infected a boatload of individuals that they don't even know that they've come in contact with. And I know that I did get a report, there's a camp over around Dayton, the Greenfield, Montgomery County area, that had 800 campers. They have 30 positive cases so far. And that impacts Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, and Illinois. Only 30 that we know of as of now. So just think, I know I've given you some information and so forth. I won't throw out a bunch of statistics or anything like that. Just what little bit that I have, just kind of mull it over and think about, you know, what decisions that you're going to make. And I would just encourage everybody to get vaccinated. So.
Thank you. Any
Any questions?
I got a question, and then.
Sure.
Currently, there's legislation in the Ohio House to change some of the, I guess, some of the guidelines or laws that we would be allowed to do when we institute policy going back into school in the fall. And one of those are, can we require people to, first, can we ask people if they're vaccinated, their status? Right now, we can. We can't require them to be vaccinated. That law that's, I think, passed the House but not the Senate yet, hasn't been signed. There's a provision in that will not allow us to ask that question. So, and I know that isn't in your field, but the next question will tie into that. I also heard that, because as I was reading through the law, through the bill, that it said that FDA-approved vaccines are permitted under a section of law that ODE is able to enforce, that, you know, the children have to get mumps, measles, and all those, and they have to have a record to do that. So I heard that FDA-approved, I guess, vaccines are exempt from, like, state laws. So if they would pass this law, and then the FDA approves the Pfizer and Moderna, which it's pretty close to happening.
It is very close to happening.
So if that happens, I'm thinking maybe that once that happens, that law will no longer be, valid, you know, be valid at that point. So I don't know if you're aware of FDA vaccines and how they correlate with laws or legislation or not, or if that is the case. But the way I read it, that's why we can do that with the measles and mumps and all those, because those are all FDA-approved vaccines.
I guess the only thing that I can really say is that, you know, right now the vaccines are still under emergency use authorization. I know that they are moving forward to have those FDA approvals for those vaccines. You know, there's a lot of government red tape and all that. So I'm really not, I guess, educated enough in that particular aspect. I think that between the FDA and the CDC and the government, and then probably to ask your lawyers to interpret some of these laws that are passed, I think that would probably be the best route to go for interpretation, because it is really difficult to interpret those. But I think it's getting closer. Do I think that, on a personal note, that we should be able to ask and have knowledge if somebody's vaccinated and so forth? Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't believe that it infringes upon anybody's right on a personal note. If you choose not to be vaccinated, then if it is recommended that you wear a mask, then you should wear that mask and you should protect your fellow citizens. So, you know, that's really my take on it. If everybody would just get vaccinated, I think it would just be so much easier, and I think that there would be less stress and less challenges. You know, you mentioned about the mumps, measles, and rubella, and all these other vaccines that we all have mandate for our children to have to go to school. What difference is the COVID vaccine, you know? And I think this is going to be the wave of the future. You know, viruses are viruses, and they mutate, and, you know, it's something that we're going to have to be able to deal with and be very proactive.
All right, thank you.
So, anybody else have any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Allen.
Thank you.
Okay, I asked Judge Skaggs to come this evening and talk to us a little bit about, as we try to make a decision moving forward on an online program for students, because I know he dealt extensively with that along with our principals, particularly towards the end of the year, as we had a lot of students who parents elected to put them online and they just didn't do anything. So I know he was constantly sending, ordering kids to come back to school. So I asked for him to come to speak to the board this evening to talk about his experience with that and maybe give us some of his opinions on that.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. And it seems like every time I speak to a group of folks, I always have the good fortune of following a speaker like Dr. Howler. And so I'll try to live up to her ability, but I don't know that I'll be successful in that. So it's my understanding that the board is currently considering whether to allow middle school students to have the option of engaging in remote learning, in a remote learning program. And so I came tonight to ask you to not allow that remote learning option for middle school students based on a number of factors that we have learned and experienced throughout the past several months. So from the time that I took the bench in February through May, we processed over 205 truancy cases countywide. 82 of those were for Jackson City Schools, 37 of those were for Jackson High School, and specifically for Jackson Middle School, 44. So for Jackson City Schools, the biggest problem for truancy as it related to remote technology was in the middle school. Of the 44 truancy cases that we processed for the middle school, I think Ms. Michael was here, I think 42 of the 44 were based on remote learners. And so it became clear to us throughout the process that despite the reason for engaging in the choice of the parents to engage in the remote learning process, maybe it was good intentions, but ultimately they were unable to focus or provide the resources necessary for the student to engage at home. And I think about when I was that age, unless I had somebody there to guide me, I probably wasn't going to have the focus necessary to do my schoolwork at home. And I think that that was the primary issue for the middle school age kids. They would say to me, "Judge, please send me back to school. We want to go back to school." They realized once they were home trying to do it on their own that they weren't able to complete the work. So the other thing that became an issue, and I'm sure that all of your teachers would be able to explain this, the school building is often the only source of structure for a lot of these kids that are coming before the court. They're seeing adults, they have other contacts in their lives outside of their home, and when they are engaging in remote technology, they may not have those outside contacts, and I can tell you that we've had multiple instances of abuse and neglect filings in the spring involving kids who are engaging in remote technology learning that I believe would have been identified much sooner had they been in school and had contacts with other adults. So based on those items, I would ask you to please not offer remote learning for middle school students. I think it's not productive. And I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have regarding the truancy process or the cases that we've processed through the spring. Yep.
You said we had around 37 at the high school.
That's
Do you
true.
know how many of those were remote?
35, I believe. Mr. Swackhammer's here. All but two. All but two. And I can also say, thanks to Mr. Swackhammer and Ms. Michael, I think those numbers would have been a lot higher, but there was a ton of work put in on the front end by those folks to try to avoid the filing of truancy complaints. And also, I have to say, he's no longer with the court. He found another opportunity, but Travis Elliott, who was our truancy diversion officer, did a fantastic job working with the schools and working with the administrators to try to avoid the filing of those truancy complaints. So even with all that work on the front end, we still ended up with 82 just for Jackson City Schools alone. So,
You call it truancy complaints.
Yes.
Truancy, they're at home supposedly working on the computer.
right.
How do you call it truancy?
So they have an hour requirement that they have to be logged in.
How many hours do they need to be logged in?
That's a really good question. I don't know that I can answer that for you as I stand here right now. I don't remember the number
All right.
precisely.
Wasn't it 5?
25 weekly, and I think that's supposed to be 5 hours per day as well.
Okay. So if they're not online on schoolwork for 5 hours per day, they're truant. Is that right?
Yes, but we've been looking at it weekly, so 25 hours on the week.
But correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Michael, Mr. Swackhammer, I think that for our students who, if they were doing okay, even though they weren't, it wasn't taking them 25 hours per week to keep up with their work, we probably did not file on those type of situations, did we?
We recognize that some students work more efficiently than others. So as long as they were making adequate progress in their courses and maintaining grades that, they're capable of maintaining, we did not file truancies on those individuals.
Yeah, because what takes me 25 hours to do might take Mr. Swackhammer 15, and it wouldn't be right of us to go ahead and file truancy charges on him if he got his work done in 15 hours and the work was satisfactory. So I just wanted to clear
Okay.
that up.
Okay.
So
That makes
basically,
sense.
if they weren't logging the hours and their grades were dropping, that's when
Correct.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I didn't have any filings that had a straight A student that had missed their time. These students were not only not logging their time, but failing miserably. A large percentage was zeros,
Really?
multiple classes. And most of the filings, quite frankly, were students with all Fs.
How did we fare in comparison to Wellston, Oak
It's
Hill?
a good question.
Benton
So
County?
Wellston High School had 71 truancy complaints during the same amount of time. The middle school had 31. Their intermediate had 14, and elementary had 5 for a total of 121. Oak Hill generally deals with their truancy in-house, so we only fielded 2 truancy complaints from Oak Hill Union.
Okay.
But it's the same issue. And so even though Oak Hill deals with it in-house, for Wellston and Jackson, virtually you're dealing with the same issue. So the filings, different school districts, but it's the same facts in filings from both districts.
It shows that these students, no matter what age level or what school, what subject, what class, they need that contact with an adult or with a real person to get that reassurance and that confidence that they can learn this
Structure,
structure.
absolutely. Look,
Outstanding. I like that.
Thank you. I will tell you, I don't know what the board's decision has been or Mr. Howard's decision in consultation with the board about the high school remote learning, but the numbers speak for themselves. Folks have a really hard time being able to work independently. It's the exception to the rule when you find a student who's able to sit down at home and get the work done without somebody standing over their shoulder, and that's just the fact. So, any other questions? All
Very
right.
good. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks for coming. You get to come back again.
I will, thank you.
And congratulations, all you did was
Just-
you're disappointed.
Yeah, at
No,
this
I'm
point,
not.
you're welcome to leave if you don't want to stay for the rest of the meeting.
Thank you,
We appreciate
thank
it.
you,
Thank you again.
thank you, Dr. Haller.
You are welcome. Call me, you all know how to get a hold of me. Call me if you have any questions. It's always, I'm on call 24/7.
Just take,
That's not accurate
next
either.
time you go to Hilton Head.
Pardon?
Take
That
us
wasn't
with you.
accurate.
Oh, next time we go?
Yes.
Okay, all right, we'll let you know.
All right, let's move on to the consent agenda. Turn it over to Mr. Howard.
All right, it's recommended that the board approve the consent agenda as follows. Item A, recommend that the board approve the following resignations. Mr. Haynes is high school principal, Phil Carl is a substitute teacher, Amanda Lewis is a teacher, Aaron Sexton, cashier, and Bobby Yates as an aide. Item B is a recommendation to approve Abby Hubbard on a one-year limited teaching contract for the upcoming school year. Item C is a recommendation to employ individuals as classified subs for the 21-22 school year, and there are 4 of those individuals listed. Item D, a recommendation to employ Ashley Merrill as a certified substitute for the upcoming year. Item E, a recommendation to employ a list of 047 classified employees. I believe most of these people are aides out at Hope Haven for our students that work out there. And then those individuals will work less than 30 hours per week. Item F is a recommendation to approve the Jackson City School preschool handbook for the upcoming year. Item H, recommendation to approve Emma Newsom as a volunteer in the athletic program. Item H, the recommendation to rescind a contract that was awarded on June 29th to Ryan Hurd as the assistant play director. That's a mistake on my part. Item I is a recommendation to approve payment in lieu of vacation to Mr. Haynes. Item J, recommendation to approve Seth Fain Photography as the official photographer for Jackson City Schools athletics and activities. Item K, recommendation to approve the volleyball support group as one of our support groups for the upcoming school year. And I believe that concludes the consent agenda.
Any items need removed for separate consideration? If not, need a motion and a second.
I'll
So
make the
moved.
motion. Second.
Ms. Smith?
Yes,
Ms. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Dr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes. New business,
Before I go to that, let me just clarify real quick that item J that you just approved, and approving Seth Fain Photography for our athletics and our activities, that's not something that we just randomly picked Seth Fain because somebody liked him. Our Mr. Haynes and Mr. Stevens have been working on that for a while, and we contacted all of our local photographers, asked them to submit a bid package that we compared with Life Touch. We've had, it's a well documented that we've had a lot of issues with Life Touch here in the last few years. However, Life Touch is a national company, and the school photography business of Jackson City Schools is a huge business because when they roll in here to take pictures in any of our buildings, they come in with 4 or 5 people with cameras, and they can get everybody through. We do fall pictures and spring pictures, and they can get everybody through in the building in just a few hours. Your local mom and pop photographers don't have the ability to be able to do that. But we believe that people do have the ability to be able to take on our athletics. And quite frankly, that's where we got the most complaints was from our athletic pictures. So I think Seth has worked closely with Mr. Schwackhammer, Mr. Stevens, Mr. Haynes, and I think he'll do a good job for us there. So lots of people had the opportunity to turn in bid requests for that. So item A in new business, I would like to recommend employment of Mr. Schwackhammer. Tyler Schwackhammer is a high school principal on a new 2-year contract effective August 1st.
all right, need a motion and a
I'll
second.
make the
So moved.
motion. Second.
Dr. Morris?
Yes.
Ms. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
yes, but I would like to ask a couple of questions before we vote? Well, it's too late though, isn't it? Okay, never mind.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Didn't give us a chance to talk about it. I wanted to ask him a couple of questions, put him on the spot. Where is that young man with the bald head? Okay.
All right, item B. Currently, Mr. Swackhammer and Ms. Michael are on 11-month contracts, so for the most part, they have the month of July off. They do have some flexibility as far as moving their days around over Christmas break and so forth, but they're going to both of them are going to 12-month contracts. And so I should have done this when we employed Ms. Michael, but I didn't think about it until now. And they're going to be needed in their buildings for the remainder of July here, or a lot of those days. So item B is a recommendation to approve 10 days of extended time. It will only be for this year, for Mr. Swackhammer and Ms. Michael at their new rate of pay,
What are you going to need them for the rest of this month?
to get ready for August 13th, or,
Is that when they go back?
well,
17th, huh?
new teacher orientation's 13th.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Mrs. Hill, got a motion and a second?
Ms. Harless?
Yes.
Dr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes. Okay. Move on to the financial report.
It's as presented.
Okay. Need a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Harless?
Yes.
Dr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes. Move on to information and discussion items, and we got a couple items there, Mr. Howard.
Yeah, the first one, contract negotiations with Jcea. I can report that we have been able to reach a tentative agreement with our teachers. I can't, at this point, discuss that until they've had the opportunity to vote and ratify the contract, but I think that's coming here in the next couple of weeks when they're going to get together to take a vote on the contract. But we have been able to reach a tentative agreement with their negotiating team. Item B, athletic passes and reserve seating. Met with Mr. Stevens today. We talked about that. Our tickets, our all-season tickets and reserve seats are going to go on sale on August 2nd. And of course, that's contingent upon being able to return to full capacity for our events, and we think that's going to be the case right now unless something changes between now and then. Our season passes for the entire year will be priced as such, and there'll be information in the media about that upcoming, but I was asked about it a couple of times today, so wanted to kind of get the word out that we will be doing that this year. Our individual adult passes for the year are $100. Our individual student passes for the year are $75, and a family pass is $200. I believe those are the same rates that we've had prior to COVID. Now, from what I understand from talking to Mr. Stevens, and we'll probably have to wait and see when this is released to the media exactly how it's going to go down, but I think that those will be able to be purchased online. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to happen. I know he works closely with Hometown Ticketing, and they've got all kinds of ways that they can do those kind of things. But the senior citizen passes, those will be sold here at school, as I understand it, and those will be in person here at Jackson High School. They're $15.
What's the age on that?
You know, I knew somebody was going to ask me. I want to say 55, but don't hold me to that. I mean, that's a good question. Are you saying that because you think I need one?
Absolutely. I'm thinking about myself, actually.
The football reserve seats are still the same $25 that they've been in past years. We plan on doing pre-sale tickets for football online. Now, hear me out here. Tickets will also be sold at the gate. So the pre-sale tickets are for people who, if you don't want to stand in line, you're worried about having to stand in a big line, you can buy a pre-sale ticket, skip the line. But they will also be sold at the gate. I did have some people who had some legitimate questions because I thought a month ago that we were probably just going to do everything online, but some things that you don't always think about. The question that was posed to me is, what about students? I'm like, what about them? They're better with the computer stuff than we are. Well, they don't always have credit cards. And, you know, I don't know about you, but I don't particularly want to turn Katie Brown loose with a credit card necessarily. But so everybody, we want to make sure that they have the opportunity to get those tickets, and we will be selling tickets at the gate.
So it'd be for all sports?
Yes, I think. And for all home events. And our price at the gate is $5. That's as per the FAC league policy that we're required to charge $5. We will be charging to park again this year, and for home football and home basketball games, and that will be $3. That's what it was prior to COVID. So it's kind of where we're at on that. Keep your eyes and ears open in the coming 10 days or so for more information that'll be out to the media.
We're gonna do parking passes?
We didn't talk about that, but I'll double check on that.
You gonna live feed the games?
You gonna what?
I knew somebody was going to ask that. I've been asked that several times.
What?
Are we going to live stream the games?
Oh, okay.
Here's my thoughts on that. There have been a lot of people that have asked on that. If we do that, how much revenue are we going to kill ourselves from?
Well, unless we charge for it.
But my only concern is there still is a little bit of COVID, and there's still people concerned about coming to the game.
There is. So, you know, maybe it's something that you do for a little while longer and not, you know,
A
long-term.
lot
But
of districts charged for them
They did.
last year.
they did.
And I'm not saying charge the same amount as a ticket, but
We paid $10 to watch several basketball and football games last year.
That were terrible.
that
And
was
they're
bad.
not
Couldn't
near
even
the
hear it.
quality that
Yeah.
our media team puts together, not near. Usually it was an iPad stuck in a corner somewhere,
Well, I never even got
and it
logged
never
in on
moved.
one.
Yeah.
I
You know,
couldn't even get
where we've got a
logged in,
media team that
refund,
goes down
so-
and shoots it like you're watching
ESPN.
level game.
Yeah.
The downside to that is, you know, how much do you charge? Because whatever the amount that you charge is, that's for your household. So back in the day, Joe, when we were in college, you know, 10 of us get together and buy a pay-per-view fight of Mike Tyson or something and pay, you know, $4 a piece, where it's going to be $40 if one person bought it. So if you're charging $5 for somebody, or $10 or whatever the amount is, for somebody to be able to have it in their home, then they can have 10 people that come to their home to watch it that aren't paying to get in here. And we still have, you know, bills to pay. So something to think about. We can talk about it again, but yeah, I've had several people that have asked me. I think that, you know, for the most part, people want to come and be a part of the environment if they can. But there are some people who maybe for a little while longer here would choose to not come, and maybe it is something that we need to see if we can offer as an option. But I think that if we do offer it, that we need to charge for it.
Am I wrong in thinking that prior to COVID, OHSA didn't allow those games to be broadcast until 24 hours after?
Yes.
Do we even know if they're going to allow it this year?
No, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's true. So we could, in the past, you could do it, I think, but you had to wait 24 hours. So who wants to, you know, don't tell me what happened at the game tonight, because I want to be able to watch it tomorrow night. So that's something that we need to look into too, because that may make the decision for us if people aren't going to want to wait until the next day to watch the game. So yeah, we can check into that also.
Have you made any decisions on the computer learning versus in-class, in-school learning?
No, prior to Mr. Skaggs coming tonight, if you remember the last meeting, I said that I would pretty much decided that, as far as I was concerned, that we definitely wouldn't do it at the elementary. I think, you know, he made some pretty interesting comments here tonight that we need to consider that may have made the decision as a district for us. So that's something that, you know, we need to decide as a group if we're going to even make it available at all. Or, at the very least, if we do, we could have some pretty strict guidelines for who's allowed to participate and, base it on your previous work, your previous attendance, and maybe allow a lesser amount of kids to be able to participate. Because I do know that, I get what he said, there were, how many you say from your building, 37? 35 out of the 37 were, but I'm sure you can tell me some success stories of maybe how many kids were doing online.
It fluctuated throughout
Sure.
the school year. There was never a set number, but we maintained about 100, anywhere from 130 to 150.
So, we had 30-some that we had to file on and had to be ordered to come back to school, but out of those other 100 that we didn't, there was probably some success stories of kids who had the opportunity to, get a job, help out, in their family, income, those kind of things. So I hate to, especially at the high school level, to take that opportunity away. I can live with, I'm adamant that we don't need to do it at the elementary level, because if the parents won't help them, those kids have zero chance. And we have too many kids at the elementary level that just flat lost the whole year of learning last year. At the middle school, those kids can't drive to be able to go work or anything, so I can live with saying we're not going to offer it at the middle school. I'm a little more hesitant to say that at the high school, because I think that there are circumstances where we need to offer that opportunity for our high school kids, and we just need to work to make sure that we're,
With very strict,
guidelines.
yes.
Yeah.
Very strict, and somebody with a thumb on it constantly.
So that's kind of where I'm leaning on that, as far as probably no online opportunity at the elementary. After hearing Mr. Skaggs tonight, no online elementary, at the middle school. And then at the high school, we would allow it, but it's going to be regulated pretty heavily in terms of who's even allowed to start. And once you start, it's going to be monitored very closely. The only other thing that I have is for the board. You might want to jot this date down. Our joint board training that we have every year with the Gallia Vinton ESC. That joint board training is going to be Wednesday, August 11th. And that's going to be at the Ohio Valley Bank on the square in Gallipolis. It's across from the city park area. I'll remind you, obviously, before then, they'll have dinner will be catered, and they have a guest speaker and so forth. So Wednesday, August 11th, 6 o'clock in Gallipolis. And that's all I have.
All right.
No, we have
We got,
somebody
yeah,
here.
we got to recognize before we move on.
I do that every
Come
meeting.
I wasn't going to forget this.
We do have a young lady that we just hired tonight, so she can breathe now. And she's going to be working out at Southview Elementary. And if you,
Hi, my name's Abby Hubbard, and I just recently graduated from Ohio University, and I'll be teaching at Southview. I actually just completed my student teaching at Westview in this awesome line, and I'm just super grateful and excited for this opportunity, so thank you.
We all know Mr. Swackhammer, but you're welcome to say a few words if you
I think
want
we
to.
should require him to say a few words.
I just want to thank everybody for the opportunity. Mr. Haynes and I have been together for a while with our experiences at Rye Green, and then I did my student teaching with him. I don't know if all of you knew that. So, he and I have been a part of each other's lives for a while. Excited for him to have the opportunity that he has presented, and excited for this opportunity for myself and my family.
All right.
and then, as you know, obviously with Mr. Schwackhammer moving from the assistant principal into the principal position, he and I will begin probably tomorrow looking for his replacement.
Hey, Pat, I do have something. Yes. I just want to express the gratitude I have of our teachers and our principals and staff that did summer school. I personally got to go in and do some things with some of the kids, the students at Westview and at Northview. And, just some of the stories I heard from where they started, the first week they were there, and how the kids didn't want to be there. But then how they ended up, like their grade reading level was tremendously improved. And that they actually, I mean, a couple of the teachers asked them if they were glad they came to summer school, and they all said yes. So they were small groups, but what I saw, we had top-notch teachers that volunteered part of their summer to help our kids, and I just wanted to personally thank them and the principals for all their work on that, and Debbie for getting the grant and opportunity for us to do it too.
And Dr. Crabtree was also, I think, I shared that one email with you that she talked to our teachers about, obviously we want you to learn, but we want it to be fun. We want kids to want to come, and it sounds like that's what we had. I think you used a word, something about like Disneyland or something.
It didn't have to be quite that.
We didn't have roller coasters exactly, but we had aqua bracelets or whatever. So.
Aquaculture bracelets, and we made homemade butter, and they had fun.
Neat.
Yeah, and we made some healthy snacks with them, like strawberry s'mores, but they were so good. I mean, the kids were just very attentive and listened and participated, so.
Did you have churns and everything?
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
Oh, I wish I'd known.
No, we didn't have churns.
They do
We
shake.
had jars,
They
and you
shake.
put heavy whipping cream in it, and you just shake them.
Oh, no, I want the churn.
Oh, that would have been like a week's worth there, Alice.
Wow.
Because they got bored shaking the jar, but it was good.
All right.
So if we could have, Abby, if you would stick around for just a minute here, Mr. Swackhammer, I'm sure that Mr. Buffington wants to get a photo of you guys for the paper. And
And then after we do that, we're going to go into executive session, to talk about personnel and contract negotiations. There won't be any action taken afterward. We'll be adjourning, so after you get the pictures, everybody is free to leave at that time if you want to. So, thank you.